always expect the unexpected at this wonderful circuit near Budapest. And today notable for a number of things. First of all, Sergio Perez, when the track was still dry at the beginning of FP1, on his first flying lap, putting the Red Bull RB19 into the tyre wall on the outside of turn 5. A classic Sergio thing, really. Coming out of turn 4, very quick left-hander, and then the next corner is a right-hander. Does one of these transitory curve things, big approach, big wide exit into turn 5, long corner driver. And in doing all that, put a left rear wheel on the grass, caught an edge, and spun into the tyre wall. Very inelegant. Not the sort of thing you'd expect anyone to do in a Red Bull, let alone Sergio in this stage of the season. And that put him obviously out for that session. It delayed everything, and by the time everybody got going again, it was wet. So in terms of getting data for what could be a dry qualifying and then a dry race, it was a complete washout. And here for the record is what happened right at the end on intermediates. Not everybody went out, as you can see. The interesting thing there was it was a little bit of a head-to-head between George Russell and Oscar Piastri, trading the honour of being quickest in the wet, trading it between one another. Oscar holding that honour right to the end, and then George putting in a 38.7. So a nice little cameo race there in the wet. And I suppose more than anything, that shows us again how quick Oscar Piastri is and how much at home he is in the McLaren. You know, FP1 in the wet, and there he is pretty much on the limit, showing what he can do in terms of talent. 39.1. Lando Norris, who was out there going pretty well too, 40.2. I mean, that's not the real margin, of course, and Lando wasn't out right at the end going quickly. Lance Stroll also showing how he still loves the wet and going very well, and Fernando Alonso 40.6. So that was it. I suppose there's a little bit of an indication there also of how well Alfa Romeo were going to go today, because there's Valtteri Bottas 41.0. He did actually have a spin just before the rain got really bad, but recovered well, and Guanyu Zhou also 41.3 there too. And it was quite funny also to see Charles Leclerc again taking the opportunity to be out there on intermediates, and at one point again on slicks, just trying to get his feel for the Ferrari in the semi-wet and the damp. Anyway, it was dry in the afternoon, and just as a reminder, this is the first weekend. It was going to be at Imola, but that of course was cancelled. But this is the first weekend in which we're running to a new Pirelli qualifying protocol, in which everybody has to run the hard tyre in Q1, the medium tyre in Q2, and the soft tyre in Q3. So guess what? Virtually nobody ran the hard tyre today, saving it. Max Verstappen, good example, just running one set of soft tyres today, going out very late as well, even for FP2. Didn't run at all in FP1, particularly after that shunt for Sergio, but didn't run at all. And then in FP2, went out 15, 20 minutes into the session and had a rather desultory day ready, just ran that one set of soft tyres. And in terms of lap time and in terms of comparing where Red Bull are with their new sidepod update, very difficult to make any comment, bearing in mind he was just using that same set of tyres. Mind you, having said that, most of the teams went down that philosophy. Yeah, maybe they ran two sets, but it wasn't as if there were lots of tyres being used. There are lots of new sets of tyres being used up and down the pit lane. So we shouldn't just say that applied to Max and Red Bull. It applied pretty much up and down. Everybody trying to make each set of tyres last as long as possible, saving as many as they could, because they've all got fewer sets now for Saturday and Sunday. So as a result of all that, and also obviously the ambient temperatures not being particularly warm, but nonetheless the Pirelli compounds being much softer than we've seen in previous years. Let's have a look at it all panned out. Everybody except Sergio Perez did a long run this afternoon, which is impressive to see. There's a lot of action going on the track for the spectators. That was really good. Oscar Piastri was laid out, floor damage had to be repaired. But apart from Sergio Perez, we saw some really interesting results in terms of consistency and what they were going to do on the long run. So they were pretty much evenly split between running the medium tyre and the soft. So I've divided it up into the tyre type. So we're beginning with who ran the medium tyre. And there are 2 pages of this. There's a lot of running to go through. I'll obviously summarise it as best I can. So Lando Norris in the McLaren, and with Oscar Piastri backing him up, looking as if the McLaren is just as drivable and just as competitive as it was at Silverstone. That's the indication from Friday at the moment. 23.0 fastest lap, which compares with Lewis 23.0. But Lando, if you look at it's a slightly longer run, but if you look at the sort of lap times he's doing compared with Lewis, it looks as if the medium tyre went off much quicker on the Mercedes than it did on the McLaren. That is their main focus of attention for sure, the way that tyre has gone off. They will say, well, one set of tyres, but then again, McLaren in the same situation. Pierre Gasly, both Alpines went out about as late as the Red Bulls as well. Looked like they were well organised. They both went out. They were both quick on single lap runs, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. And you can see they're very impressive runs by both of them. 23.2 for Pierre Gasly, 23.0 for Esteban Ocon, right up there on the pace of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton in terms of fastest lap. But again, like Lando, you got to say they're looking a little bit better towards the end of their run than Lewis in the Mercedes. George Russell had a little bit of a more fragmented day, in and out, but you can get a feel there for where he was. Not quite as quick as Lewis, 23.5. And Oscar Piastri out late for that long run because, as I say, he had some floor damage that needed to be repaired. They did a good job to do that. And look at that, 23.4. Very, very impressive again from Oscar Piastri. Now we look at some of the other medium tyre runners. Fernando Alonso, 23.6. So remember, 23.0 is a sort of Lando Norris time. So there's Fernando doing 23.6 very consistently, and the tyre's not really going off apart from the last 3 laps on the medium tyre. But not quite as quick as the McLaren or the Alpine at the moment. But, it's early days, and anyway, they weren't out at exactly the same time. And Hungary does pick up a lot of grip. Even as the session progresses, it gets very, very dirty offline, and conversely online, it does pick up grip very quickly. So the circuit evolves, and that probably is a reflection of the evolution of the groove. But look at that, if you put that alongside Alex Albon, also out on the medium tyre, doing a long run in the Williams. The Williams look very competitive today, starting off with a 23.0, again, sort of Lando Norris Alpine time. And again, pretty impressive, very consistent for the Williams, looking really good. And Logan Sargent, 23.2. And again, very consistent as well in the other Williams. So looking very good for Williams right now in terms of race setup. And that really is what this is all about at the moment, because, as I say, qualifying predetermined by the compound choices they've allocated for Qs 1, 2 and 3. Nico Hülkenberg also put in an incredibly long run, as did Lance Stroll in the other Aston Martin. 23.3 for Lance Stroll, very racy, 0.3 quicker than Fernando in terms of quickest lap. Slightly longer run than Fernando. And Nico Hülkenberg, a very good run as well. Obviously not quite as quick I say obviously on this occasion, the Haas Ferrari not right there, but look, pretty good consistency, very good homework, you got to say, by Nico Hülkenberg there. Let's have a look now at the runners that chose the soft tyre for their fuel runs. Again, 23.0 seems to be the bogey time. That's what Charles Leclerc was doing. That's almost what Max Verstappen did. Red Bull will go on and say, well, we just ran the one set of tyres. Ferrari, did run more than one set of tyres. But on that run, on that specific run, 23.1 Max Verstappen, 23.0 Charles Leclerc. So Ferrari not looking bad. And Carlos Sainz, 23.4, lost probably a little bit of confidence at the end of FP1 when he spun coming out of turn 3. Again, an inelegant spin, not quite as inelegant as Sergio Perez, but lost it coming out of 3 and then went into the inside guardrail and then got stuck on the curb and brought out the red flag briefly. AlphaTauri looking good as well, 23.6 for Yuki Tsunoda, but really competitive. A lot of laps in the 23s. And the tyre's not starting to go off till 3/4 of the way through, 24.8, 24.6. And then right at the end doing a 23.7. So a good run by AlphaTauri with Yuki Tsunoda. And Daniel Ricciardo settling in, as he would, settling in very quickly, 23.5 fastest lap. Not as long a run, but slightly quicker than Yuki. First time out with fuel in the car. Everyone will be very happy with that. And good to have Daniel back in Formula One, no doubt about that. And potentially leaving the best to last. Here are 2 more runners on the medium tyre, and Kevin Magnussen, who was the only runner to put in a long run on the hard tyre, because as I say, everyone's conserving their hard tyres for Q1 tomorrow and for preparation for Q1. They've got to get through into Q2, everybody having to run that hard tyre. Look at the 2 Alfa Romeos. Valtteri Bottas, 22.9, and a good run after that. Some other laps below the 23s. And Guanyu, 22.8. And obviously the track had evolved as the session progressed, as I say, but really impressive runs by both Alfa Romeos. The team looked good, and both drivers doing a very good job all day. And Kevin Magnussen, you can see there the hard tyre doesn't look particularly impressive. Mind you, it wasn't very warm today, as I say, so the hard tyre certainly wouldn't be in its sweet spot at the moment, but 23.7 and then just getting slower as the run progressed for Kevin Magnussen. But at the moment, if the temperatures stay where they are, you've got to say that the soft tyre looks to be a half reasonable race tyre around Hungary, which isn't what Pirelli expected, but that's really because the ambients are relatively cold and it's not, and things could change, of course, by Sunday. Everyone's saying don't read too much into it, but at the moment, one of the conclusions I think we can make is that the McLaren still looks really competitive. The Alfa Romeo and the Williams both look pretty good. Alpine seem to be very strong as well. Ferrari not slow. Charles Leclerc looking quite good in the car again. And Mercedes need to do a bit of work on their deg over the long run, but they're pretty good at getting that sorted overnight, so they'll probably be in the ballpark as well. So the big question mark is Red Bull with its upgrades to its side pods. How quick is that car? Has it actually gone slower as a result? Let's just have a quick look at those in detail at those pods. And I've got a WhatsApp message here from Zhou, who's tied up with other things today, but he said he thinks that this development is a further evolution of the existing wide side pod philosophy. But Adrian's been able to take it one step further by extending the lower lip all the way forward. It now has a tapered design because it wouldn't otherwise fit in the regulation boxes. That's how far forward it is. Pushing the lower lip forward allows them to start the pressurization earlier, which will help them manage the front wheel wake, especially in yaw, in other words, when the car's turning. But it also allows a smoother undercut, resulting in even lower drag. So on the face of it, a significant upgrade for Red Bull, but there were no signs of that today. We'll see what happens tomorrow, and of course I'll be doing another video after qualifying. Big thanks to Jetcraft and to Pitbox.io. See you tomorrow. Take care.